Shora Bashemti. This is Veronica once again, and welcome to the um, game walkthrough, the Unwritten walkthroughs, where I will talk and give commentary about the video game I am playing and how to adapt it to Unwritten, specifically the Myst Myst games right now. Hey J2, shout out for you. I think I also saw the Warcrown Archival, whose name I am probably mispronouncing. But hi, and I'll say hi to the rest of you guys as things go along. So yeah, this is the second of these. We'll see how these go. I added stream elements to the channel. We'll see if that has any effects on anything. As usual, I am playing everything entirely by ear. So who knows what will happen. Um, However, we had some big news. Okay, let me get to let me do the administrative stuff. So if you like what we do, you can support us. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/unwrittenjourneys. That supports this stream. This supports the monthly stream for the Strange Seeds playback, for the Strange Seeds live play. And as we get more people, we'll be able to do more things, as well as generate brand new content in terms of lore and that sort of thing. But we'll see how that goes. And also, make sure that you want to go out there and buy Cyan stuff. And on that note, today is a big day. The trailer, the short trailer for the new updated version of Myst came out today. It's going to be coming to the PC, Mac, and Game Pass August 26th. And also, yeah, J2, it does look amazing. That's one thing that Cyan does, probably almost better than anyone else, is that they just make things that look absolutely amazing with whatever technology is available. So yeah, definitely. Actually, what I was going to do is I was going to go ahead and play that trailer right now, so we can take another look at it and see if there's anything, see if there's any other things I can think of to comment on besides, oh my gosh, that's pretty. So let's see if I can actually do this right. I think that's there. If there's sound or video problems, let me know, and I will try to fix them. Okay, here we go. There you go. So yeah, that's the Myst trailer. Short but sweet. Lots of really great visuals. JT, you mentioned that they changed the generator in Stone Ship. I know that this particular, according to what they said at the last Mysterium, this Myst version is based off of the sort of same code base and same design base as the virtual version. And for the virtual version, they had to kind of reimagine many of the controls, so that they would be, more natural for someone using VR and the VR hand motions and that sort of thing. So there's a number of changes. Some of them are a little bit bigger than others. Um, I've seen a little bit of that on the Quest version. Not that I've played it. I've seen people stream playing it. So there's a couple. Um, there's a couple variations. And I think I mentioned last time that you can pick up some of the items that lie around, that sort of thing. Yeah, I've been thinking about a VR setup for quite a while now, and um, this may be finally what gets me to go to it, and then I'll go back and also play Abduction in VR. I've been told that it's sort of hit or miss in Abduction because it's not made for VR, so there's a couple of weird things. I mean, it wasn't made initially with VR in mind, so there are a couple weird things. But I don't know. Excuse the coughs today. So um, that's that's the trailer, and so here's some of the requisite uh, you know obligatory unwritten focused commentary, since I can't think of another phrase for it. Um, so I mean, Myst. I mean, this Myst is a rebuild of the game that we all love and the game that we all played. Um, really sort of designed to be up to the graphical standards of modern day, with the idea that if it behaves like a modern game, then we are more then fans new people are more likely to get into the game and into the uh, you know and kind of discover the things that the old fans did. That sort of find the mystery, find you know the surreal world, the surreal place that will become your world, or whatever it was um, in the original advertising. So I mean, I think there's a bit there's an option that randomizes some of the puzzles, so that you actually kind of have to spend a little extra time figuring things out. Um, Not all of them, but some of them. And it, of course, looks amazing. I This is not so much a criticism, but I kind of wonder if there is a missed opportunity here. Ha ha ha! Missed opportunity. Sorry. Um, that the Myst game itself is pretty static and has been pretty static. Um, and I wonder if there may have been an opportunity here to not just port Myst into another set of graphics and redo all the graphics and that sort of thing, but to um, you know sort of not necessarily reimagine, but sort of expand the Myst game, either in terms of some different sorts of puzzles, or if you can fit another age in, or something like that. Um, I know, of course, that takes time and money, and um, Cyan is an indie company, and what their goal was is to make something, to make Myst into something that really fit into the 21st century, which is a noble goal. I mean, I'm totally for it. I just kind of wonder, you know, I mean, I kind of look at it like, when they do reboots of various movies. Hello, Rachel. Welcome. Shara. Um, I kind of look at it like when they do various reboots of movies that, you kind of look at some of the classics and you're like, why do they need to make a reboot? Why do they need to make another Princess Bride? You know, or why, do they need, a movie based off of Scooby Doo? Really? Um, why does Disney have to, make another live action version of one of their classics? Um, and I kind of get that. But I also get the fact that, sometimes a new version can bring something new to the table. One of my best examples for that is Battlestar Galactica, which I was a huge Battlestar Galactica fan as a kid. I used to, it showed up on the independent station, uh, that I watched as a kid, and it was on right about the time I got home from school, and I loved it. And I was really worried about, the Battlestar Galactica that came out, just a few years ago. Maybe 5 or 10 years ago now. Eesh, I'm old. Anyways, I was worried about it, but then I watched it, and it's a really excellent series. And partially because it brings something new, new themes, new uh, new takes on the themes, new takes on the characters, that sort of thing. So I kind of wonder if there's an understandably um, missed MES, mised. There's an understandably missed opportunity here to sort of add some more takes on the Myst game itself, on that story of the stranger finding the Myst book and then trying to figure things out between Atris and Aknar and Ceres and such. I don't know. Now, to tie that back to Unwritten and gaming, a lot of in gaming. There's a lot of adventure modules. At some point, we'll probably do that ourselves. Um, and once you go through an adventure module with your group, then you've gone through it, just like if you've played through a game, and that's fine. But you can always kind of come back to your own take on it, I think. You know, and that's also you can look at the adventure module, take the basics of it, or adjust certain things to fit your group, adjust certain things to fit you as a GM, um, maybe change some things, do some alternate things to make it kind of fit with some different things that you're trying to explore, the type of game you're doing. Um, and if you've played it before, or if your players have played it before, you can try to adjust it a bit so it's a new experience. So I mean that's sort of my idea off of that is that you know you don't have to necessarily hew to a particular module or idea just the way it is, um, and that you can reuse so many of these things, especially if you bring something new to the table. Ah, that being said, let me get uh, things started up for real Myst. We'll get back to that. It'll take just a little bit here. Oh, there we go. Okie doke. Okay, let me make sure that I'm here. I think I am, but yeah. Okay, doke. So we explored mechanical previously, um, which I decided to do that one first because I wanted to talk about the foreshadowing, the Chekhov's gun of the tower control and those sounds and stuff. Um, However, I don't have a particular order in mind outside of that. So so everybody, people in chat, let me know which age you want me to try next. Selenetic, stone ship. Um, wow, throwing a blank. That's silly. But yeah, Selenetic, stone ship, channelwood. Um, you know, let me know if you have a preference. Uh-huh. So Rachel says Selenetic. By the way, for a long time I could not pronounce that right, and I still fall back on it now. I will sometimes say Selenic or Selenic or Now, it's these things where when you see it, just see it in text, and you don't know how it's pronounced. Um, okay, let's see here. So that we need to turn the power on, and that's what I've talked about. Yeah, the literal player railroad in Myst. Um, go through our 10 by 10 stone corridor. Now, I have to admit, I know the number, which is 59. I'm not going to go back up to the tower rotation and move things around again because we already know how that process works and we've already talked about it. But I don't remember always exactly which buttons to push. So I may have to go through this a couple times. Okay, let's see here. I think there's a bunch of, actually some of the ones down here. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, J2. Yeah, I played with some transparency and some masks around. So you can see the imager through the picture, and you can there's a little bit of fuzz around the side. That managed to actually work. I didn't know if it was going to. Oh, there we blow it. We might as well figure it out while we're here. Oh, there we go. One button off. And now we need to go and fix things up. When players make a mistake, having some way of them for them to fix a mistake that's sort of like this, you're like, oh, I blew the power. Well, I guess I'm going to need to go fix all the, fix all the circuits and that sort of thing. I mean, that's a pretty good sort of thing to have in your puzzles or problems, because it kind of reminds players that there are consequences, and it does sort of talk about the idea of failure should be interesting. Like as a counterexample, we'll start with something I ran a game of Dresden Files RPG, also Fate, also mainly developed by Leonard Balsera, with a bunch of a cavalcade of very good authors. And there's a relatively complex system for doing thaumaturgical rituals, which is magic that just it's relatively free-form magic in the sense that it can do big things. It just takes a long time and a lot of effort. And so you do that roll. There we go. So to get so since to represent that it takes a lot of effort, you have to get many successes. You have to roll several times and get many successes, and that seems pretty reasonable on top of it. And so, what we found was that it actually turned out to be kind of boring, because it's just like, oh, okay, I need to roll. Well, I succeeded once. We figured out I need 7 successes for this magical ritual to actually take place. And then it was, okay, well, I succeeded in the first roll, and now I roll again, and now I roll again, and again, and again. Oh, I missed that roll, or I'm gonna have to roll through more. So, yeah, I mean, I failed that roll. Well, okay, now I have another extra roll to do. So failing, I mean, not only was the fact that I had to roll several times in a row to see if I actually did it sort of boring. The fact was that if I failed, well, it just meant I had to roll more. So it meant more of the boring stuff. So I think it's a really important thing in no matter what game you're doing is that you don't roll just for the sake of rolling. Just like, well, there might be there's a secret on this road. Well, let's roll to see if they see it. And if they fail, well, they don't have any clues. And so what do? Well, they mill around, they try to come up with ideas. They often, players will often go down a track that makes no sense whatsoever. And they will, eventually get bored, and you will eventually have to kind of herd them back towards, what you're doing. Because in that case, failure isn't interesting. Failure means you twiddle your thumbs. Failure means you roll the dice again. It's sort of like, I'm fighting a dragon. Well, I hit it with the sword. Roll die. Okay, you did 2 points. What are you going to do? Well, I guess I'll hit it with the sword again. Well, you missed. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, I'll try again. So, I mean, but failure has a real option to advance the story somehow. And it's sort of, it's sort of like falling forward. And so I think that's a really important thing of any game whatsoever, is that, excuse me, is that you as a GM, you are there, you want to keep the story moving, and you want to keep things interesting for the characters, for the pickers, and the players. Okay, let's see this. Just so you know, I'm not very musically or tonally inclined, so I kind of have to count this, and it may take me a couple times. When I first played, this was the hardest puzzle for me, because I was just like, I don't know if those 2 notes are the same. I have no idea. Hi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then 23. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Oh, go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then we 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see if I got this right. And I did not. Oh boy. Speaking of boring, here's the point where you see me try to figure this out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sort of like a slide whistle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 20 I want over it, isn't it? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's 20. 21, 22, 23. There we go. So here's our little electronic thing for the Myst book. Yeah, that, you're right, Rachel. That bit of foreshadowing and mechanical really is, the key thing. And I think the key lesson, is make sure that the information is there and that it's available. So we got the little electronic book thing here, which, as far as we know from a lore perspective, isn't actually accurate. Um, we don't really, this is one of the places where, the game uh, deviates from the lore. The lore being that, things like, there are no such thing as scrapbooks. And another place here is that, there's this sort of electronic book window thingy. But we don't have that in the lore anywhere. Um, we don't really see that sort of thing in the lore until sort of the modern era, the Yeesh era, where we get things like borrow stones and you know, linking glyphs and all of the Yeesh magic. Um, but it's one of the things that once again you make the. Yeah, I know the lore. Well, okay, a lot of the lore was, not all of it, but a lot of the lore, good chunks of the lore were figured out afterwards, and there was retconning. Um, so okay, now you talk about retconning. I can relate that to role playing. Ha! See, I get to turn this on you. So, I'll once again just talk about a game that isn't Unwritten for a moment because this is my example. Um, I used to run Amber Diceless roleplay based off of the Amber books by Roger Zelazny. Um, and there was this bit where one of the characters gets sort of ambushed by an NPC in their room. And the NPC grabs like a lamp next to their bed and like whacks them with it and knocks them unconscious. Seems all normal and such. Amberites, members of the family of Amber, are actually really, really strong and really, really resilient. So later on, well, actually, not much later on, the player is like, wait, you shouldn't have been able to knock me out with just like whacking me with random candlestick lamp sort of thing that you picked up somewhere. So I'd made a mistake. Had just gotten into I want to knock him out, and so here's my thing. I'll knock him out with with this lamp, whatever was there. Um, and then the character and the player rightly pointed out that doesn't work. Um, Now there are a couple ways you can handle this. Um, you can say, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry about that," and then you have to figure out what you're going to do from there. Yeah, yeah, JT. The idea of there being a permanent camera set right in front of Atris's desk, and he's just writing there. You know what? I'm hungry. I should get lunch. No, no, I'll just sit here longer for the rest of this day, just in case something might need me right here. Yeah, yeah. Atris really gets focused on the job in front of him. But so I mean, when you make a mistake like that, um, you have the option, of just owning up to it. Oh, sorry, that messed up. And then you might have to backtrack a little bit and decide that, um, backtrack a little bit, and then you as a GM have to go, okay, what do I need to do, to kind of angle things the direction I want to, anyways, and how do I respond now? It becomes much more improvisational. Um, Another stupid GM trick that has a long and noble history is looking at the player and going, "There's a reason for that," and you kind of put your hands together, like a mastermind. Yes. And then you figure out a reason afterwards. You either kind of, fake it until it comes, till the end of the session, or I've had to in a couple places just go, hey, I need to, you go use the bathroom. I'll be right back. Or I need to go get a drink. And give me a little time to think about it and come back and think about, okay, this happened and I kind of liked that it happened. Why did it happen? And so in this particular Amber case, I decided that, yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. Yandris. I hope I'm spelling that. Yan. Is that an L? Oh, it's Landris. Is this curator? I kept reading that as an I. Yeah, I kept reading that first part as an I. I'm just like, yeah. Hi, curator. But yeah, there's definitely that certain, wow, that seems weird, doesn't it? Cue the ominous horns, from Star Trek. No, no. Oh, yeah. Rachel brings up a really good point that retconning is useful as a safety tool. And I'm going to read out what she said, so it's recorded on the stream. If something happens to the game that makes a player uncomfortable or crosses a line in some way, the group can rewind the scene and have it play out differently. This is really important, I think, and kind of goes back to the whole social contract of we're friends doing a thing and we want to have fun and we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. Even if the game is edgy, games like World of Darkness, Vampire, that sort of thing, you're not playing nice people. And that's sort of understood at the beginning of the game. However, you are still people. And so it's very important to understand that, your character might do that, but it might not be a good idea. And sometimes you find out after the fact. And then you can go ahead and retcon it and rewind. Let's do it again. Let's come up with a patch for why it didn't happen, that sort of thing. And as a GM, you have to be receptive to this, and you have to be perceptive in the idea of seeing when your players are uncomfortable. Because that's once again really important. Because often, some players, especially newer players, will not realize how uncomfortable they are, or not be sure how to articulate it. Or they might, articulate in a way that comes off in a different manner, like they're being, sarcastic, or they're being, they're being annoyed, or they may say something and someone else says, "Oh, there's no problem with that," and then there's a table talk argument. So, as a GM, you need to kind of add that sort of perception there, because you are the referee of the social contract. Luckily, I'm definitely not the first person to have talked about it, and so there's a lot of very good tools out there that have been developed to help you with that sort of thing. First of all, discuss beforehand. I don't want to do X. In the Strange Seeds scenario, one of the players said, we talked about what sort of things do you not want in the game. And one of the players said, that they were worried about the exotification of native cultures. Specifically, that idea that some sort of indigenous indigenous peoples to an age are they're exotic and different and strange and usually primitive, and we are the whole sort of I rate an age where I'm where I then present myself as a god, essentially the whole Gen complex. And as a GM, you can fall into that. I mean, in the Strange Seas game in Kenelin, this age Kenelin, there is a village there of people who are have been convinced that the Dini are someone important that they need to follow. So, but they wanted to be, make sure that, we're not going to, do any silly sort of, we're here, we are the sophisticated people and we're here to, we are here to, raise, to help, sophisticate these savages or, any of those tropes. Exactly, Junie. All that stereotypical stuff is minimizing. Um, yeah, and some languages would just linking books. So, sometimes the party is just weird. It's just like, I think I'll lick some paper. Um, and in other places you accidentally end up acting like colonists. You know, in other days it just rains. It's weird. There are lots of options, but yeah, and I'll probably not go too further into this because we get into a rant about privilege and social justice and that sort of thing, and that's the always sort of thing that starts an argument. But it is very easy for people of any stripe to and any players and GMs to have their preconceptions and to just kind of lean into them and not realize how much preconception is going on. So yeah, that was one of the reasons, one of the things that came up beforehand. And so that is something that, I have written down on my list of things that people said they wanted and people think they don't. So that's something I keep in mind. There are some other tools. Some people, have sort of like, red light, green light sort of things. Something that's very common is called the X card. Which is, you have a card, like an index card or something with a big black X on it, and you put it in the middle of it. Yeah, you just have it on around the table. This is for physical stuff, but I guess, you can have like, online you could have, an emote or something. Oh, Junie, how often do you find players point out your preconceptions? Does it catch you off guard? Um, it does happen. Um, I am lucky enough that either I don't fall into that too much, or my players are willing to humor me, and so it hasn't come up too often, but it has come up. It does catch me off guard because um, it's a preconception. Uh, if I had realized it was there, I probably would have thought about it and done something different about it. Um, and it's easy to be defensive. It's easy to go, well, no, no, no. There's a good reason, and sometimes it's just, okay, let's figure this out. Um, and it's another one of those times where taking a break might be a good idea. It's like, hey, well, let's everybody let's chill out for a bit. I'm gonna go grab a drink. Let me think about this. And I'll come back. Bio break. Everybody go. Sort of thing. So yeah, um, and as a GM, once again, you're in sort of a position of power because people kind of look at you as a judge. So you have to even if you don't agree with somebody, and your players, unless it's really insane, what they're talking about, you kind of have to take a second and go, hey, why are they saying this? Why did they bring this up? And sometimes, it maybe, they don't understand, or, they're being, they think they're being funny, they are not as perceptive as they think they are. They have their etc. And sometimes it's like, wow, I didn't realize that was stupid. I didn't realize that I was using a stereotype here. I didn't realize that that I hadn't thought about it as much as I should have. So yeah, but the X card is said a card that has an X, and you have it on the table, and the agreement is that if someone picks up the X card and puts it in the middle of the table, play stops. And they don't, the scene stops, and the person who puts the X card down doesn't have to justify it. It's just it's a red flag that says, I don't like what's going on. In the not just like my player, my character got beat up, but in the as a player, I am no longer comfortable, and that with the expectation that the rest of the group will listen to that. And there'll have to be some discussion either directly just with the GM or with the group of sort of like, okay, how do we move from here? You know, it's like, oh, well, yeah, the safe word card, exactly, the safe word card. And I don't know what the delay is, so maybe I'm responding to you guys a few seconds later, but yeah, um, and that's as it, but I think one of the key things of that is that everybody agrees that they stop. And everybody agrees that they don't argue about it. Like, why should we stop? No, it's fine. No, someone's got, flag down in the field, 10-yard penalty, we stop. And, we take a break, whatever, and, the person who throws it doesn't have to explain why they have a problem. It is just important that they have a problem, and then the group addresses the problem. In LARP games, I've heard it called fade out. If the situation gets into a weird place, you just go fade out, we're done. And you can kind of then you can decide does this need to be retconned? Does it was it just something that we can say that happened, but we didn't want to get into the details. Okay, they got so and so was taken out back and beat up, but we didn't want to walk through it, so we fade out, go. But I think once again we're back to the social contract, and I'm a big, the whole game as social contract thing is one of my capital O opinions about it, and so I come back to that quite a bit. Well, that was a bit of a interesting tangent there. All right, let's take us to Selenite here. Here we go. Here we are at Selenite. Selenite was one of the ones that took me the longest amount of time to figure out what was actually going on. Not puzzle-wise, but lore-wise. Because, Selenite has a really interesting sort of history that you really don't get easily off of just the environment. And you don't quite, there's all that information that's in the one book about Selenite. But I didn't quite get what they were, how that kind of related to this exactly. So that's one of the things to think about is that, well, there are a couple places here where you can, apply this to gaming. One is that very often as a GM, you will spend effort into why certain things are the way they are, and histories and backstories and that sort of thing that may absolutely never ever come up. And one thing to remember is that is not a failure. That is the sign of just putting thought into it. Not every detail that you come up with needs to actually appear explicitly in game. But all of those things together inform your decisions as things go on. If you've decided that a character has had a long history with the seedier underbelly of Dini culture, wherever that happens to be, because we've never really talked about it. But that may never come up, but that may inform the choices they make. That may bring up, well, they had no, they were really good at, figuring out how to break into that area, break into that vault, or, where did they get this thing? I don't know, fell off the back of a truck? No, we're not going to ask. Whatever it may be. Actually, I think I'll go this way first. And that's going to be for your characters, your background, your world. You know, as a conlanger, someone who makes languages, this happens to me quite a bit. You know, in the fact that I'll make a language for something and, you know, it'll appear like in one sentence or anything like that. And, you know, and then it never shows up in the game ever again. But, you know, and I've spent a long time going, you know, hey, you know, making, you know, this and that and the other, and it just, and it didn't, in the end, it didn't, you know, didn't come up. But that process of working through the things is a valuable way of thinking about the environment and thinking about the game that you're wanting to present. You know, like, you know, Game of Thrones, there is a whole, I mean, there's a whole Dothraki language, and it's got, you know, thousands of words in this and, you know, it came up a lot in that, but, you know, there's a lot of details that never ever came up. Oh, there's no more over here. Okay, I gotta go back. I gotta go turn on the other buttons. I better not talk too much about the conlang aspects of things, because then we'll really never get back on topic. Wait, did I turn the light on? I forget to. Yes, it did. So now that I've talked for a while, and I'm working on this, anybody have any questions, comments, or anything that they'd like to share? I can answer things. I can, you know, say things out loud so that, you know, it's on the stream. You know, you can think about that for a bit while I go across the whole island and try to get stuff all put together. Gotta get the crystals over here. Over there. It's up. Okay. J2, has anyone created a module simply by paying through Myst verbally? Excuse me while I hydrate. Yes. You might have heard of him. His name is Rand Miller. It's not Unwritten, obviously. But one of the things that, Rand and Cyan people did, is that, they walked through, in a sort of a D&D sort of way, role-playing game sort of way, the different, aspects of the game to see if they made any sense. If you're doing a puzzle for your game, this is a very important thing to do. Beta test your puzzles. Here's another example, actually. One of our alpha games was actually based off of Riven. It was run by my lovely wife, Ellery. And she was running, she was actually playing a game similar to Strange Seeds in that she was playing, the characters were Denis before the fall. But the beginning of the game was this extended shared dream sequence, where as Denis, they were on Riven at the time of the Riven game. And so, they were talking to Gen. Gen knew things about, the history of Denis that they hadn't encountered yet. They had information about Denis that he didn't have. And she'd made some changes to some of the puzzles and where things were and such. But she used it as, she didn't just walk through the game, but she used it as inspiration. If you were to take, like you have a bunch of friends who've never played, Riven or, and you just kind of walk them through it, they don't have, the patience to watch you play the game or watch you play it, but you really want them to kind of experience it, then, that's an option. The thing you have to be careful about is that they understand that they're dealing more with a escape the room situation, and that they know that it's not, that they may have characters or that sort of thing, but that a lot of the environment is set aside, is about these puzzles and solving them. I mean, and that could be fun. Especially if you've got people, you have the occasional person, a group of people who like, say, escape the room stuff. But maybe they're not, too much into the storytelling. I've met people like that. There we go. Okay. I have unfortunately developed a habit of misclicking things all the time. And typos. You should see some of my typos, they're epic. Yeah, J2, like you say, most you play D&D, and some people prefer the exploration to the battle. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of, kind of the niche that Unwritten's going for. And a verbal Myst might be just a great way of doing that. You may have to, play loose with a couple things. Expand a couple things, unless you plan to, read the monologues, from the brothers from the Myst books, directly. You may need to, maybe some back and forth and that sort of thing. But yeah. Yeah, the sound puzzles will be harder to describe. Oh, there we go. Get this one right. Okay. And that's once again, your situation requires that you modify things to fit. Yeah, we'll get to that. Notice the sense of resignation. Let's go this way. Okay. This is a section that's much more fun to just, roleplay and fast forward through. Okay. And the wind. I haven't seen this part in the new Myst, in the Myst VR at least. So I don't know what this actually looks like in that. It'd be sort of interesting to see how they adjusted it, if they adjusted it at all. Rachel makes a really good point in chat. Make sure the puzzles are accessible to your players, i.e. puzzles based on sound or color may need to have other ways of solving them. Absolutely. Accessibility in general is something that people should pay attention to. And in the gaming, in the RPG industry, there's been a lot more focus on that lately, making things more accessible in a variety of ways. But yeah, definitely, pay attention to the unique situations of your players. And it may not necessarily be something that you would qualify as something that needs accessibility. It's just some of it's just like I'm going to talk about my wife, and we'll see if that gets me in trouble. Which is that my wife hates lights out puzzles. The puzzles where you click the box and then the other boxes around it turn on, and you kind of she absolutely hates them. She can do them, but she just hates them. So, you know, I don't put them in games that she plays. You know, so, you know, adjusting to your back to the basics. Adjust to your players. Yeah, Landris. You definitely, you know, the maze runner can definitely be passed through. Since we're almost there anyways, I was gonna just kind of say, you know, I mean, I can see some situations where if you have a certain group of players, they may want to walk through that. You know, they like mapping things, you know, where's everything? You know, they like mapping things, you know, and I've had players like, you know, I've had some people who like that sort of thing, which is fine. But that's going to be rare. I think that if you're, you know, if you decide that you do want the action of going through the maze to be important, then I think you need to actually take the Maze Runner puzzle and make it more elaborate. You know, don't make it just a maze. Make it, you know, make it a maze of places that have interesting things, whether they're visually interesting or what's what I'm looking for? Sorry. If they're visually interesting, they're narratively interesting. You know, they may have, you know, small bits or events in them. You know, these sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? The sort of, you know, the so-called, you know, sort of, you know, random encounter, that sort of thing. So that way, you know, not only are they going to, you know, actually, you know, go through the maze, and then, you know, you may want them to map it. They may be interested in mapping. But there's other things to do, especially if you've got one player who's like, I can do the mapping. I love writing stuff down. You know, I do geocaching all the time. I love mapping. You know. And then you have other players who are just like, I am so bored of left and right. Yes, more than just a point A and a point B, Rachel. Absolutely. And it's just kind of a general rule, you know. Anything that's just point A to point B is, you know, time passes, or, you know, as Landers was like, here, Landers was doing, you know, here's your description, and now we're moving on. Kiddo. Oh. So, now that I was talking during this whole thing, I forgot to actually pay attention to the sequence. So I'm going to have to go back. So, you guys get to witness me be a bit of a dork here. So, now let's turn this around to gaming. You may be in a situation where you've actually, you know, dropped a hint to your players, and they're not paying attention. They're focused on other things. They don't think it's important. You know, they think this conversation they're having with, you know, the stonemason is a lot more interesting than the fact that, you know, you've pretty much just, you know, absolutely told them the code to the thing they're trying to get into, but you know, they were too busy, you know, making a date with this stonemason that they like. there are a couple philosophies on how you want to handle that. And it sort of depends on the players as well. If the situation itself is more of a puzzle, you may want to have them, go to try to, to solve something and go, oh, I don't know what to do here. Once again, falling forward towards the failure being, leading to more things that you need to do. More, I messed up, but that means, I have more things I can do and more role playing I can do. Or you can just kind of point it out. It's like, by the way, so and so said so and so, and said such and such, and that's important. That can be helpful. Once again, depends on your players, depends on what they like. And now I gotta remember the order here. Water. I'm gonna have to write this down. My brain has drawn a blank on the usual order, and stop it. I'm having technical problems. Water, earth, air, clock. Sounds like the beginning of Avatar, isn't it? Crystal, water, earth, air, clock. And then the Fire Nation attacked. Or maybe the beginning of Captain Planet. The different references will resonate with you depending on how old you are. Again, I click on the wrong things. Interestingly enough, unsurprisingly, this makes me think of another thing I can talk about, which is the usefulness of the sort of comedic aside in a game. There'll be something where something weird sort of happens. You've been playing for a while. Something weird happens. Or someone makes a joke and everybody laughs, and you're just like totally like, yeah, let's go with that. That's awesome. Let's do that. And it might not make for the best flow of a narrative flow, or it might not make for the best sort of plot flow or anything like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do it. Once again, role-playing game is a conversation. It's a conversation between several people, and you guys are making stuff along. And sometimes conversations have digressions. For evidence of that, you've been listening to me for about an hour make digressions. And sometimes that's fine. And we have the running joke in Strange Seeds about the murder rocks. That's just son of a goofy thing, and it's not something you would see in Myst game or Myst TV show or Myst novel, but it's definitely now part of the play experience, and it's part of like I said, sort of that of the table. So yeah, and what else? Also the potential of Kenneth drugging Landris to keep him out of trouble or keep him from freaking out too more. That's an important part of things too. Okay, let's actually do this. Okay. Okay, air. Yeah, it should be there. Okay, let's see if I actually got this right. That means I did not. Oh, I think that's what I did. Nope, I'm not doing this right. That's the crystal, yeah, definitely. That's the water. That's the rumble. Or is it? Is that? Is that the rumble? I think so. Okay, now you get to see me to go through everything and make sure I'm actually remembering everything correctly. So, going back to the discussion of accessibility, sound puzzles are not always very good for me because I'm not a very good person with sound. My hearing's not the best. Much to the chagrin of my wife, who tries to tell me things and I don't realize that she says anything. Okay, so it's that one for that. Do. I'm getting these backwards. Oh, I had two of them backwards. There we go. Remember, always double check the answers to the puzzles, whether you're a player or a GM. Okie doke. And now to everyone's favorite part of the Myst game. So everybody in chat, let me know how did you do the Myst runner? I mean the maze runner. Did you figure it out manually? Did you remember? Oh, it's a button. Did you remember the sounds? Did you map out the entire thing? I know some people who mapped out the entire maze and then sat down and figured out where they were supposed to go. So yeah, let us know. Okay, here we go. Forward. You mapped it all out on a piece of paper, on a paper plate. There we go. That's taking what you've got with you and really running with it. And start spinning. Okay, so Rachel, you took notes until you realized the sounds were a thing, and then you figured it out from there. Makes sense. I think that's I think that's very common too. That people eventually go, well, what are the sounds for? Okay, that's the. God, what is that? I think that's. Here. I think it's east, but. No, it's west. Unfortunately, I don't think that's what's actually this is randomized in the new Myst. I mean, I don't know for certain. I think north. That'd be really cool if it was. Yeah, I can see that, Rachel. That you're thinking the sounds that were connected to the room and not the direction. Whoosh. Ding. That's an east. Is that south? No, south is cowbell. Any other questions or thoughts while we're doing this? Funk. That's cowbell. It needs more cowbell, obviously. It's another reference that only certain people of a certain age will get. That is west, I think. Yeah, I can see that, Rachel. That, because it's the same sound all the time, you think it's about the place, not the direction. That is southwest. I'm going the wrong direction. All the way around. And that's back to the west, and that's actually west. North, and that's north and east, I think. southeast. Yeah. Something different. That's a good sign. And here we are. Do 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 do. Okie doke. And here we get to the final bit. And we make it through. And let's go give a page to Aknar here. Where are you, Aknar? There you are. And we'll hear what you have to say. Austerity.
Ah, good. Still more blue pages, you father. Bring more. I must have some more. That's all I ask of you. It's been so long since my brother, Selenite, wrongfully imprisoned me within this book. Stupid schemes. Pretty speech. It's been greed, which is endless. It should be perfectly obvious to you. He's done evil and he has destroyed all before. Do not bring the red pages to him. You must not let him trick you. He believes you.
I wonder how many takes it took for Rand to get through this without laughing.
Hideously murdered our father. He'll trick you. He'll murder you. Don't touch the red pages.
Don't touch them.
I beg you to bring the blue pages. To me. Listen, you must obey me. Pages are my only hope. You must help me. You must help me.
Really chews up the scenery here. Okay, now, I do want that red page. So I'm gonna have to go through it all again. Do 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 do. Okay, so now if y'all are still listening, or you just got bored out of your skull going through the Maze Runner, another time. But so since this is about Unwritten, what sort of stories and experiences do you think that you would like to do or experience during an Unwritten game? What sort of stuff do you want to do? What sort of places do you want to see? That sort of thing. Let's share them and see what get ideas from each other. Okey-doke. Back to the Maze Runner. So, Rachel. Rachel says, one of my favorite things about Myst Unwritten are how surreal and unique the locations can be. And I think that's great. I mean, it's a really big deal. That's very Myst. Is that not just, here's another forest, or here's another, cave, another, series of passages, twisty passages, all alike. But that you can kind of really go out, and have really creative ideas. And I think, if you manage to catch the last Strange Seeds game, that's west, okay. That's pretty much what that whole session was. It was just sort of exploring Landris's age that he wrote. Seeing what's there, and kind of wandering through it. I think that role players are very used to role-playing games being like war games, and so we're very very good at having games that involve fighting people, but that we're not very good as a whole. Oh, that's east. As a whole, about doing other sorts of activities that don't have that sort of inherent one person against another. That's a difficult thing to have to do properly, in the sense of if you want to explore, there has to be things to explore, obviously. I'll think. East again. You have to have things to explore, but they have to be interesting things. And there have to be, there have to be challenges to overcome during exploring. That's really, I think, one of the important things. Away. Is that part of exploration, I mean, especially in when you're describing things in a role-playing game, is about the challenges you took to get there. And then the payoff is being able to see the things. Like in the game, figuring out that there's the tunnels underground, and there's that puzzle about there are details that should be there, and we should trying to figure out why aren't those details there, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think and Unwritten is of course trying to get that specifically Myst feeling, so non-violent, other ways to solve problems. There's no reason that you can't do that in other games. If you like, if you have other games you want to play, other settings that you want to play in, you can still kind of use those same principles. Okay, still south, I think. And just so the rules may or may not support you very much. Am I going the wrong way again? Yes, I am. That's left. That's west. Something I state in Unwritten is that, really, a role-playing game, I think, in most cases, is about being awesome. You want to be awesome. You want to have awesome stories. You want to have awesome experiences. Wrong one. And I think that your setting and your rule set do kind of help you tell you what awesome means. If you're playing a game like Feng Shui, which is sort of the role-playing game of Hong Kong action flicks, being awesome is fighting dozens of guys one at a time that run at you. Cool kung fu moves, snappy one-liners, that sort of thing. But for the Myst universe, finding cool things and overcoming challenges to get to them is what's awesome. I think that's, but that of course does require a sort of constant supply of new things to find. Myst as a universe, the Myst universe provides that. Just write another age, and there's more stuff to find. But that means that you as a GM, you still have to spend that time and energy to make places to find, make places to find and to find and to have challenges to overcome. Northeast. Backwards. And I think that's one of the challenges that Uru as a game had, is that exploration requires more things. Little Laundress, is that where? I forget what your child's name is. I'm really sorry, but if you don't get him a T-shirt that says Little Laundress or something, there's no justice in the world. Okay, make sure he has a middle name of Rand or something. I don't know, but. And yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what Mashavan comes up for those Tunnel Cubbies as well. You make a one say yes, Little Laundress, I'm sure, baby's first linking book, little toy key, you can do all kinds of stuff. But I think that here's the thing is that one of the things that's key about role-playing games is that it's about engaging with the fiction directly and interacting with it and transforming the fiction. What do you do in, say, like a shooter? It's like, well, you shoot things. What do you in a board game? You want to win. Okay, north. But I think role-playing games are unique in the fact that what you're actually doing is not just experiencing the fiction, you're changing it. The fiction changes in response to what you do. How do you make a move in a role-playing game? You interact with the world and think, and it has effects. Okay, that's south. That's southeast. Hope. The fact that I'm talking a lot while trying to do this means there's a much more higher probability I'll get lost. You should see me when I'm trying to drive somewhere and I start talking. Oh my gosh. Thank God for Google Maps. But I think that's really a key thing that, as Myst fans, we are used to, being given the world of Myst, and we experience it, and we go through the games, and we find out about Atris, and Aknar, and what happened to Yisha, and we, run through the, we run through the journeys, and we solve the puzzles, and wow, I'm not dork too. I forgot to actually get the red page. Well, okay, you know what? Cirrus will have to wait. The heck with Cirrus anyways. as I was saying, it's very, it's reactive, it's passive. And I think what we can do with Unwritten is that we can add our own things to it. Not only are there explicitly rules for adding your own things, like the deductions or spinning a fate point to declare a detail, that sort of thing. Um, we make changes. I did not, have any plans for there being lots of security systems around, the base. But Farraguy, as Mashavan just was like, decided that there needed to be security, and now the security um, and the sort of technology and contraptions that Mashavan comes up with is a key part of the game. His choices have made a difference in what in how the world works. Just like Laundress's, Laundress's meticulousness, if you will, about how to do things, and Tomei's mysterious background, and can it sort of devil may care, let's just move on with it sort of thing. Celia's Celia's you know zeal for exploring, all those sort of things. So, okay. So it's about an hour and a half. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a break. Um, I will be back here in about 10 minutes, and we will go on to the next stage. So see you guys in about 10 minutes, and you know, you know, don't fall down a hole or anything. I don't know. Hello, Shora, Saluton, Maschas Malaron, other greetings. Welcome back. Okay, so we are back. I want to reiterate that, just for informational purposes, that the next Strange Seeds live play will be on September 11th, 1 p.m. Pacific. That is not the normal time, because our normal time is the first Saturday of the month. Though normal might be the wrong word because we've missed it almost as much as we've made that. Just, players and myself, we have lives. Uh-oh, someone fell down the hole. How did you fall down a hole? Do we need to get Lassie to come get you out of the hole? Once again, saying how old I am without actually saying it. A Lassie reference. There you go. Younger people are like, Lassie. Who the heck is that? But anyways, okay. But a rabbit hole. Well, okay. I mean, did you fall? So, Junie, did you fall down a literal rabbit hole, or are we talking more metaphorically? Because I think that's an important distinction. Me being a klutz, I have fallen down an actual rabbit hole. I've walked along and stepped into it, and then fallen over into my face. But okay, the Strange Seeds time is September 11th, Saturday, September 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific. Oh, you were on Wikipedia. Yeah, that's almost as bad as going to TV tropes and clicking around. You may never return. But yeah. But we'll go on to session 7. We'll see how things are going with that. But yeah, just sometimes people have lives, I have lives, and we move around. But I still want to just kind of keep that going as best I can, so we can keep that rolling, have more story. And I have to admit, I kind of like the fact that even only 6 sessions in, we already sort of have, we've got running jokes already in the Strange Seas game. We have moments that we remember. Do you remember when Celia got, hit in the full in the face with a geyser full of jellyfish? Do you remember when Kenneth, drugged, Landris? All those little things like that. I think that sort of, I think that remembering back to those to those games, and the things that have happened, whether you're a player, a GM, or in this case with an audience, that's part of the fun. It's a shared experience. It's a shared point in time, shared nostalgia, that sort of thing. I think once again that's the power of a game that engages with the fiction so much. That ability to create memories. Let me give you a couple examples. And this is, the first one's a counterexample. There's this video game called Stellaris. Stellaris is this sort of awesome space game. It's sort of like Civilization in space. You have a couple ships, and you have a planet with people on it, and then you explore different star systems, and then you move people to it, and you build, you build star bases, and you build ships to move to other places, and you build, things to protect yourself against attack and that sort of thing. I really enjoyed playing Stellaris. Because I'm the sort, I love Civilization games. I love that sort of game. I realized, however, that and I played it for a lot. I played it a lot for a while. Um, I realized, however, that I didn't really remember the games I played very much. Um, I mean, the feedback cycle was such that I would play it, and I'd keep playing it, and I'd be like, I can, go another hour. It's not too late. 1 o'clock is not too late, really, isn't it? I can do another hour, that sort of thing. But I realized I wasn't generating any memories. I would be like, oh, I played Stellaris for what? Oh, wow, I played Stellaris for 5 hours last night. And it's like, so what'd you do? I, I don't know. I kind of clicked and I moved ships and, I built this planet. This name I don't even remember. So yeah, I mean, it was an engaging experience in the sense that at the time I was engaged, but it didn't engage me at any point past that. It was sort of, lost time. Hello, Capel. Good to see you. Shara. I'm glad that you can make it. We just came back from break, and I'm doing a bit of pontification, as is my custom. No, not first time playing, nor is that the first time that you asked. This is for discussion about the Unwritten role-playing game, and we're using the Myst games and later games to go through, to talk about role-playing games, to talk about Myst, to talk about the Myst world, and the written role-playing game, and using the Myst game as I played along for inspirations. But so I was playing Stellaris. I had fun. I killed time, but I didn't really have anything to show for it afterwards. Now here's my other example: is that I used to go to a convention in Minneapolis called Minicon. I think it's still going on. I went way back in the day when I was in college. And there was this group there called Rogue, R-O-G, and they were sort of this. They were a group of people who made up their own little sort of corner of the Star Trek universe. Rogue was a rogue Star Nation, and they decided that they were going to go to the con as a unit, as members of the Rogue Nation, and there was a bunch of them, and they divided into ships, and they played role-playing games of in their little homebrew Star Trek corner. And the main reason they did that is so they had stories to tell. So they would be hanging out, at the convention, and they would have war stories to swap. And they went all out to it. Before the word cosplay was a word, they had uniforms. They'd organized into ships. They had emblems on, they developed different styles of uniforms. People made the uniforms. They had patches of their particular ship on the arms. And when I was there, I mean, there was a good 40, 50 people in Rogue. And they were the ones in the parties who were having fun and, in the wildly animated conversations. And so they had created a fiction, engaged with it, and then used that to fuel, more fun in the future. They had war stories. They had, they had established relationships in terms of, that's the captain, and I'm the engineer, or that sort of thing. I think that Uru did that really well as well. And I think that the fandom of Myst and that sort of thing does that as well. Is that we have memories of us playing Myst, as I've gone from stream to stream and listen to people, watch people play Myst, and have people come in and say, "Oh yeah, I used to play this with my dad," or I spent hours trying to get through that. I think a good game creates memories, and those memories, whether it be nostalgia or whatever, kind of add more. They last beyond their time. So this particular, welcome to, thank you for listening to my TED lecture. So we can probably do at least one more age today. We have Channelwood and Stoneship. What do y'all in the chat think we should do? Should we do Channelwood? Should we do Stoneship? Does somebody have some amazing third option? I don't know. Here's a chance for you to, have your voice heard. Channelwood. Oh, 2 votes for Channelwood. Nobody's voting for poor Stoneship. Hey, anyone else? Bueller. Note another reference that dates me. That seems to be the theme of this week's live stream, is references that date me and tell you how old I am without actually saying so. So it sounds like we're gonna go Channelwood. Okay. Here we go. Okie doke. God, I gotta remember. 7-2-4. Yes. 2-4 or 4-2? I think it's 2-4. Thanks, Judy. Yeah, I guess we're the same age. You get all my references? Oh, good. Good to know that I'm not just here like, making a fool of myself. Go back there. Buttons. Who's got the button? Interesting enough that in the Myst VR, I know that this bit here is actually very different as well. I mean, they still use the code, but the safe looks entirely different. Okay, here we go for the matches. It's interesting how it always kind of interested me that Myst is not a game with an inventory, except for those few times where it does have one. Oh, I forgot to light it. God. Not used to the control. There we go. Aha. I have to admit, the first time I played, I did not really get what that sound was. Yeah, this is the part where we burn everything down, Parker. Now, this is one of the things that wouldn't be done nowadays. They wouldn't want to encourage you to play with fire. But it took me a long time to figure out that sound was this here. Once I saw the little thing on the tree itself, the little room, I finally figured it out. But it took me a while. Never underestimate your player's ability. A group player's ability to misunderstand what you're trying to get across with a clue. I'm not saying that players are not intelligent or anything like that, but they're different people, and so they have different assumptions. But, there we go. And so something that may seem like really obvious to you may be completely not obvious. Channel. I have to admit, I do kind of like Channelwood as an age, just because I like forests, if nothing else. Okay, where am I? I like trees, what can I say? Hey, there's that. We want to go towards the island. It's a very pretty age. I mean, and as much as I love surreal ages, you know, I think with Rachel was saying that, you know, the surreal places were some of the joys that she had in the games. I mean, you know, I love the surreal ages. I love Imateria, and how that looks. I love Spire with its glowy, floaty rocks. Those are also great, but there's something about Channelwood that's just really nice, you know? Let's see here. Yeah, Parker. Yeah, the new details in the new in the upcoming the soon to be released Myst are really nice. It's kind of nice to be able to see Cyan go back and, you know, really get to play with all that. Okay. Oh, and another thing in Myst VR, those switches are entirely different. Because apparently in VR you can't necessarily crouch. Channel is also another one. I don't remember off the top of my head all the details, even though I've played it, you know, a dozen times. So, excuse me while I try to fiddle with things. Okay. There we go. Wait, come on. Let's go over here. Let me actually... There we go. Let's see. Yeah, where's the interesting stuff now? Yeah, actually, Parker, that's what I think what it means. That it's, I mean, it's not about going down and switching it that way. It's got its own big bar that you have to kind of like pull on. This is another one of those places, you know, when we're talking about, you know, making sure that we have some sort of accessibility. So much of this, you know, is dependent on, you know, you actually hearing what's going on, and you can hear the water going through and that sort of thing. And you really need, you know, you have to be very careful about that sort of thing. It's much easier to be careful about it, though, in a role-playing game, because you can just say, you can hear the water go this way. You know, it's like, you can explain not just what they here, but what it implies, like, well, there's water going here, like, but if you go down that way, you don't hear any water, so it's obviously not coming down this way. There we go. Let's see. Okay. I have turned myself around. So Parker, this is a question I asked people earlier. What sort of place, or experience, if you were playing an Unwritten game, what sort of place or experience would you want to have? Since you get to, you get to kind of, in the fiction, you get to kind of design how things work out. Oh yeah, the connector's on the other side. Doo-doo-doo. Ah, there is a run function. I forgot about that. Okie doke. We've got the pipes going here. We can go up here now. Oh, I closed the door. So Parker says, I like the idea of having a place and objectives to encourage players to pick apart the workings of a world. I have a world idea that could be interesting. Now I just need to imagine the clues that can lead them to understanding the place. And I think that's a really cool idea. As we were talking about earlier, that those people who want to explore want things to they want things to play with. They want things they want levers to push. They want to figure out things. I think Myst fans in general are the sort of people who want to understand how things work and why they do. So like a little detail like in the Stage Seeds game about the little underground lizards come to feed on the jellyfish. That says something about the ecosystem. And then Myst fans being Myst fans, that's an interesting detail. And then you get to speculate about things. So I think having that sort of world where it's just a part of what you're doing is trying to figure out how it works, I think that's pretty awesome. The sort of clues you might want to leave around, I think, depend on your players. And as I've repeatedly said, and I will probably say many, many, many times over the series of playthroughs, some people like the explicit puzzles, some don't. Some people want, a much more explicit thing to fiddle with. They want a diagram of, the workings and that sort of thing, and wow, if this gear connects to this lever, which connects to this thing. I wonder what happens if I pull this thing. And that's a pretty good. Oh, that's wrong. So that's one way of doing it. And you've had slime molds infesting your imagination for a while. They have medicine for that, Parker. If you've got too many slime molds, then there are people who can help you with that. What did I do? I got turned around again. So the slime mold age is your idea. Okay, I'll remember that. Now, in that vein, there was a little Flash game at one point. When people remember Flash. But there was a little Flash game back in the day. It was called Grow, and it was from some Japanese programmer. And did I do it again? I think I did. I just went back there. And imagine an age that's been geographically shaped by the life cycle of slime molds. And to get around or something like that, you would have to, understand the life cycle. Sort of like, a very elaborate version of trying to understand that you need the squee over to make the plant grow big, the squee sand to make the plant grow big. Which would be fine, Okay, what am I missing? What am I misremembering? What I'm missing or misremembering is that there's a switch somewhere I'm thinking of. Can I open this door? Oh, duh. Sort of. Okay. I mean, I don't have to grasp it right away or anything because it's obviously the sort of thing that is meant to be explored and picked apart. But yeah, I think that sort of there are all these different things, and they all happen for a reason. I mean, once again, I think that's a really awesome idea. Makes sense. The slime mold is such a dominant force in this world that the life cycle of everything hinges around it. Yeah, I can see that. Okie doke. Let's start checking out the tree houses. I really like tree houses too. I don't know, maybe it's because I kind of grew up in the country. Well, sort of country. But tree houses are fun. Trees and tree houses. Oh, that's dead end. Okay. So you kind of have to understand the slime mold to understand the age. That makes sense, Parker. Here we go. Okay. But so I think one of the things one of the inspirations you can take from Channelwood is for ages that have actual indigenous peoples, civilizations that I mean, you only get hints of it here. That Aknar has kind of I don't know if subjugated is the right word, but the people here, and that there's some bits and things going on with Aknar. Did I just go in a circle? I probably did. Twisty pages. Oh, I think I did. Yes. All right. But that we get the feeling of it from here. But it would be really a really good game would actually involve actually meeting uh meeting the people of this culture, and even Aknar as a PC. You know, can you convince the people who live here that Aknar does not have their best interests at heart? Can you convince them to let you go, take you to the Myst book, um, find the Great MacGuffin, all those sorts of things. And I think that also, not only is it, make it less, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of make it less lonely. I mean, it also allows, some people want to play characters um, who are people persons. They want to. Okay, how do I do this one again? They want to play the face. They want to talk to people. They want to negotiate. They want to have those conversations. Okay. I have not seen Parker. I have not seen the Netflix show Lost in Space. I saw the original, and I saw the third goofy, like late I think 90s, early 2000s movie that they did adaptation they did of it, but I've not seen the TV show. Okay, I went there. This is a nice thing with Real Myst. I can look around and go, oh, that's how things connect. Notorious for not being able to quite tell in the sort of slideshow version, not being able to tell, which direction was which way. Alright, so Netflix's Lost in Space would be an excellent version of a great example of a great unwritten campaign. So that's really awesome. I will have to watch it. Because I'm always looking for what other examples. Because we all all of us know Myst. We all know Myst games and that sort of thing. And as I've said before, I think the Librarians was a great version. Here we go. But yeah, so yeah, people who not only we got Netflix's Lost in Space. What other TV shows or movies or such do you think would make great unwritten games? I mean, or even video games besides Myst, the Myst games or Uru games. And I mean, heck, after we're done with all the cyan stuff, maybe, I can take one of the ideas that you guys suggest and I can play it, maybe even, the first run through since I may not know it. And then, you can see, reaction and you can see, we can figure out, we can discuss ideas about how it would make such a good game. It is fascinating, a study of imagining a world in a way that it asks you to examine it scientifically. That's really interesting. I like the idea of a show that wants you to, kind of pay attention to the world. Let's see, I think I've probably gotten turned around again. Come on. See, this is one of those places where, it'd be really nice if they gave me, like, a sound so that I know which way to go. Okie doke. Okey-doke. That goes down there. We're going to want to come back up there. The water's going to want to go in here, I think. Parker, imagine telling direction in this place, because imagine one telling direction because there's just one bird that won't shut up. Yeah, that'd be. Oh wait, you go over the bird, and when it's really annoying, turn left. So schism. Hope I'm saying that right. Laundress. What sort of? I mean, tell us about. Give us the elevator pitch on schism. What's it about? And why is it interesting? I'm away from the bird. Well, lucky you. Like, I need to go to the bird. Oh, God, I hate that noise. Stupid bird. Okie doke. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Here's our little section. And this, my friends, is why you should hire a conlanger if you want to have a something to sound non-human, even if you don't want a language, Otherwise, things sound too much like, oh, I made up sounds that sound cool. Aknar's answering machine. Yeah, there you go. And you got to remember that, this is at a time, where people were actually used answering machines, and and eventually, where, what you put on your answering machine was sort of the ultimate expression, your ultimate, like, personal, creative expression. Schism was one of those fine jewel case rack at Best Buy Myst clones. So much that its full name was Schism Mysterious Journey. However, from what I recall, it does have its own unique and interesting story that sees you traveling to different locations similar to Myst and interacting with more NPCs. I also remember math being involved in some of the puzzles. I like puzzles with math in them. That's because I kind of like math. For other people, such puzzles are not a feature. Una tuta solo son bishlet unde unjaba. Wait. Wrong system. Wrong universe. I mean, that's got. I have to admit, that is sort of terrifying. That, like, close up of Aknar there.
I hope I pushed the right button. Very interesting device, dear brother. I'm not erasing anything important, am I? He is preparing. Remember, take only one page.
So that's the classic sort of, you find a message meant for somebody else that tells you something, but doesn't really tell you a whole amount of that much because obviously you don't have the context. classic thing. You use it a lot. You can use it a lot. I'm using it a lot in the Strange Seeds game. You know, the message things that you find for that have those messages have been left around by the cult of the tree that are found. So that's just sort of a good sort of adventure game style tradition. Okie doke. And I think it's just Stellaris is over there, isn't it? Yeah, Stellaris is alright. Okay. Is it that one that was at the door? Or was it over here? Old food, great. Stellaris actually has, a sink. That tells you about Stellaris. The red. I'm not going to bother with the red. I'm going to take the blue. Check and touch all the things. There's the other half of the marker switch thing. So, once again, the torn note, an incomplete note, another classic, and obviously using it in the Strange Seeds game as well. With the bits of the journal with essentially the puzzle in them. The ramifications of that particular puzzle in Strange Seeds we haven't actually seen the fruits of that yet. But it's there, and it's still waiting. Dun, dun, dun. You're working on a bunk bed with drawers under it, Parker? Not for you, though. Yeah, I mean, professionally working on that. Got the best toys, you know that? All the things to make stuff with. Not that I could do anything with those. I'm a computer person. All that, like chopping wood and screwing things together and sanding, all that. That's all a hardware problem. I don't understand that. Okay, I gotta go back up here. I think I gotta turn the water the other way so I can take the Myst book. So I know, Parker, you do a lot of that work. I mean, you just don't do much of it for yourself. Is that it, or just never get around to it because you're doing so much of it for everybody else? The water going this way. Materials take money and extra energy. Yeah, having the extra energy, it's a big deal. Let's see, I'm trying to remember where I put it. Down this way, or did I? I get so easily turned around in Channelwood. Yeah, okay, yeah, I know I've talked before about, describing things and giving players things to interact with, like props and such. Not having extra energy I can sympathize with. We're making a stone desk right now for, blank. And the tiny human takes a lot of our energy. Yes, children take a lot of energy. No, not that way. Did I go that way? Yeah, I think it's that way. But in the times of having things to interact with, here's a great example is actually something Parker made for Ellery for the Myst 25th anniversary booth at Geek Girl Con several years ago. Ellery wanted to do a sort of scavenger sort of hunt for the people at the convention who were attending that, and have a puzzle for them to interact with at the end. And Parker made this awesome puzzle box, with these nice little dials that all manual, all physical stuff. These dials that had you could adjust, so you could actually make different combinations on it and all kinds of stuff. We've used that particular box for not only that thing, but for other different things. And because it has a way of you can customize the positions, the actual positions of the dials, and what the combination is. It's really, really flexible. So I mean, if you are a crafter or a crafty sort of person and you can make cool things and you have the time, that definitely can add a lot to a game. It is not required. And don't think it's like you don't have to dress up for a convention or something like that. You can just go to it. You don't have to do something elaborate for your game. All you need is your character sheets and your dice, and you're ready to go. Well, if you ever just want to make us another box, feel free. Also, since I'm talking about Parker and cool things that he makes, we also have a copy of the Geminette sets he made, which are a lot of fun. And we've taken it to several conventions. We will often in the before times, we would go to conventions and just sort of hang out and talk about Myst stuff and try to find the others like us. And that Geminette game is an incredible way to get attention. Everybody loves it. People will come from across, big gaming rooms to find out what it is. Though I guess I should also mention some of the things that Laundress has made. Laundress's player. But yeah, he's made all kinds of, cool books and journals and all kinds of things. Yeah, just when you have another $800, one of those many times where you just have, almost $1,000 just to spend. But yeah, I mean, I think that, Channelwood hints at cultures and situations that you can actually, play through in a role-playing game with as many NPCs as you want. Different types of NPCs, intrigue, politics on the big and small scales. And it, we think of Myst as such a sort of solitary experience because we're kind of the stranger on their own. And even in Uru, we spend a lot of time by ourselves running through various things. That we forget that there's a lot of game to be had that's just talking to people. Speaking of people,
my friend,
or people who are sort of people.
Bring in the blue pages. I see. Convinced the Cirrus is guilty. Pray, do not release him. He will destroy me, just as he did. The innocent bystander. I've been wrongfully tricked into imprisonment. Flint, you have observed his unbridled lust for riches.
I mean, at least Aknar feels passionately about the topic.
Gruesome plot. It was almost perfect. Final blow to father. You tricked him into believing that it was I who was the murderer. I didn't murder father.
Once again, your NPCs don't have to tell the truth. They don't have to be right.
A liar. All in a liar. Must not be free. The remaining blue pages from the last age of Myst. I must be free. You must free me. I cannot bear it here for eternity. Free me.
Ah, poor Aknar. Misunderstood. That's all. Okay, we got about a half an hour left on what I was intending to play, so I think I could probably just make it through Stone Ship. I have to remember, let's see here. Bug. Not that. Not the arrow. Not the leaf. I think the snake is one of them, I forget. Yeah. Yep. Dangerously passionate. I don't know if that's, a description of a great, like, romance novel, or, a description of a really, really tart candy. Could be either. Come on. I'm too close. Here we go. All of the above. Okay, works. A dangerously passionate story about a confectioner and the sour candy that he uses to win the heart of his love. Something like that. Okay. I forget which button does which thing. The puzzles here I think are relatively simple, so I don't think this will take too long. This is one of those ages where, like I said, the puzzles aren't so much difficult. It is, you just kind of have to get the sense of how the themes and the ideas of the age are put together. This is definitely a lot of, well, I poke at X, I poke at Y, what happens, Ack. Did I turn around? I may have turned around. Oh, here we go. Also, the lighting sucks. Okie doke. This is Sirius's. Like, oh, he's just fine, isn't he? That's programmers playing around. And that's game developers who get bored and want to do something cool. That's what that is. Hey, this is foreshadowing. It's very refined in here, but they're drugged, so he's probably decadent. just kind of cool. And here we engage in the time-honored adventure game tradition of rifling through other people's things. I'm actually going to focus on the blue ones. So, but I actually think that in here is one of the most difficult things in Myst, because it involves being able to realize that there is a passage in here somewhere. Let me say, I don't even remember where it is in real Myst. Those things it's really hard to see. And I've noticed in a lot of people's computers, it's actually impossible to see because of how they set their lights and everything. No, I will go across and get the blue page at least. I've noticed that modern games have a tendency to, call out these little things a lot more. There's a lot less pixel hunting in modern games, which I think is great. I know that there's functions in a lot of games, in a lot of more modern adventure games, where they will highlight the things that can be interacted with in some way. And I mean, so I'm kind of almost of two minds about it, because it is a really good idea. Because I think about how much time I've spent wasted trying to figure out, is there a secret panel here somewhere? How do I access it? I spent hours running around the same place over and over again without realizing that, oh wait, I just didn't see the turn or didn't see the lever. But I guess I'm old school enough that it still kind of feels like cheating in some ways. Not that I don't entirely use it completely, but there we go. That turned on. Pretty to evil, evil to pretty. Pretty and the pretty evil spectrum is kind of hard to understand, but luckily Aknar's an expert in it, and he's been able to illustrate it with this useful tool. I'm playing for bits. I'm a little punchy. You may have noticed. I forget if there's anything. And the infamous torn page trope. Okay, let's go in here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, if, it'd be interesting to, know if they had that idea of those being maps of other ages, or maps of this age, and those sort of things are like little details that you could, play off of. Maybe you're playing a modern game where you can get to Myst, and the books are still there. Those might be of other ages that the characters are going to find and be able to go to, and then someone will go, wait, wasn't there a bunch of maps in Stone Ship? I'm sure one of them looked just like this, or you could even drop that as a hint. It's like, you've seen this before. Oh, I was talking earlier about having memories. Games that that give you memories that you can call back to, and sort of moments that you feel are iconic. Even though they may not be big deal. For me, this is one of them here. Um, when I figuring out this particular puzzle, because I took the water out and it's like, oh, this is not down here. What's the big deal? What's this switch? And I can't open the thing, and then realizing, wait, that's letting water out. Well, I wonder if I could just make it float. It's not it's a physical puzzle, and it's sort of a contrived puzzle in the sense that it's a puzzle, a physical puzzle made to be a physical puzzle, as opposed to something that would have would have an actual use or that sort of thing, or be the result of how of other things in the story. However, I have very distinct memories of going, I wonder if that will work. And then, coming back here and going, oh wow, that worked. That totally worked. And it was one of those moments that sort of really captured me into Myst as a game. It's like, that's actually kind of clever. Come on. Over here. And figuring that out and going, hey, that's really clever. And I hadn't really seen many, other games that hadn't really done that sort of thing by then. A lot of adventure games had sort of, either really obvious or puzzles or really obscure ones. I mean, I like them, but there was definitely a lot of like you have to click the right thing, or you kind of have to have happenstance or something. So, but that became one of those moments, one of those memories of this game that stuck with me, and and when I saw that Riven was out, like I wasn't really following that, the Riven or anything like that at that point. But I was like, oh, Riven, that's Myst. Oh, I remember doing the thing with that key. That was pretty clever. Once again, you think, both Myst game, adventure games and role-playing games at their best give you memories of things that you enjoy. Okay. 135, if I remember correctly. It's a. I guess I could go up there, and earlier in the stream, I was being very, sort of, like careful about, I would have gone, as a player, I would have kind of looked around here, but I find myself not as feeling as detailed. Oh, look, here's something big. That was totally not an original game. Obviously, they got San got the memo that a lot of people didn't really notice that one. Okie doke. Now here comes the question of, can I remember where it was? 85, 80, 45, 90, 41, 135. Yes, I can. Yeah, it's only lit when the power's on, of course, which makes sense. But not in the original game. Also, it's not, while I did mechanical first, most of my, early memories of Myst are stone ship. And I think this sort of, bit here is part of it. That sort of, you click on it and then You click on this and, boom, all the lights turn on and you get the music. Zoom. Walking it. Yeah, I wonder what the. That'd be interesting. Yeah, the VR gives you all sorts of different opportunities. I think just the yes, it's true. The set perspective of the original, that was a big issue. But yeah, VR has all those immersive opportunities that, even things don't have to be quite as pretty or quite as intricate. But the immersiveness of the VR makes up for it. See, this is also another point, that sort of, the Myst book coming up out of the morphed table there. That's kind of like burned into my brain. I was like, dude, check that out. Let's go listen to Mr. Acknar. Nope. Okay, here we go.
Hello, I'm Acknar. I'm glad to see that you've returned to help me escape from my wrongful imprisonment. It was Cirrus who did this to me. Cirrus, my wicked brother. Do not listen to him. I warn you. He's a liar. Do not be persuaded by his evil lies. Do not release him. He killed my father. He will kill you. It began when my brother Cirrus began to lust for riches. He stole from the ages of Myst. He hoarded riches for himself. My father slept away his watchfulness. My sick brother secretly pronounced himself king. King of the ages of Myst, he said. He began to look upon me in disgust. His lowly brother hated him. And then Cirrus began to destroy the ages of Myst. He burned their forest. He tore down their structures. He flooded their lands. He murdered their inhabitants. Completely destroyed all but 4 of the ages. Of course, I had one father. When I finally found him, there was Cirrus also, talking cleverly. The lying tongue of a serpent. He had convinced Father that it was I who destroyed the ages. He convinced Father that it was I who was greedy for wealth and plunder. And as Cirrus dealt the final blow, he tricked Father into believing that I was the murderer. But Cirrus did not deal as fast a blow as he planned. And his father died a slow death. He at last doubted my brother's clever lies, and so in dying, Father imprisoned us both. Unsure from which of us the blow had come. I swear to you what I say is true. Release me. You must release me. My brother is a deceitful liar and deserves punishment. I only wish vengeance for my dear father. His murder. Believe me. You must only recover 1 additional page to release me from this prison. It's the easiest to find. Go to the bookshelf that's in this library. On the far right side of the middle shelf, there's a burned book, which is different from the other burnt books. This book is filled with patterns. Find pattern 158. Mimic its design on the panel in the fireplace. Doing this will bring you to the last blue page. Remember, don't take the red page. only the blue page. Return quickly to me. And do not touch the green book. It's a clever trap to imprison those who have not been warned. Do not be tempted, or you will rot and die, imprisoned as I am. I tell you, if you follow my instructions, it will be well worth your while. I promise you that. Go. Go.
And there we are. Okay, of course. The book is over here. You know, many pages. And it just keeps going and going and going. Anyways, yeah, we've all been there. Okie doke. And we're gonna need to go into here. Oh, you did? Parker stayed in room 158? That's pretty awesome. Okay, let's see here. See here. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Let's see, there's 2 there, and then it goes down. 5. 2, 1. There's a 1 there. X. Da. Did I get it? That's 2, 1, 2. Oh, there's 1 here. And there's 1 there. There we go. By the way, I do not have that memorized. I wrote that down. Okay. So here's the moment of the moment of the choice, which is another one of those things that Myst was back in the day really kind of famous for, was that you were given this choice and it wasn't a particularly obvious one. Let's see here. The code is burned in my visual memory. Rachel says, I had a potentially morbid thought. What would you think would happen if the stranger moved the red and blue books closer together, then put the last books into the last pages in each book at the same time? I mean, you mean so like, oh, well, okay. There's the whole releasing them both, but does that, if they're trap books, does that mean half of you goes to each? No. Now, is there one of those, weird things where, one's, touching one book is, a millisecond before collecting the other, and so you go in there? Do you split in half? Does it just, create like a dissonance and just nothing happens? Who knows? And the thing is, link struggle, exactly. And this is a good, some player is going to, just like Rachel thought of it, some player is going to think of something like that and going to go, I wonder what happens when I do X. Something that you just don't expect. And, you might have, if it's not really all that useful and you don't think it's going to be that interesting, let the brothers work it out. And you may not think something like that may not be that interesting, and so you can just say, no, it's not going to work. Or you can take the opportunity to, add something new to the environment. if you thought about it a bit ahead of time, or if you have something that you need to weird to have happen with books and you haven't figured it out, you could take what the players come up with and run with it. Or, I mean, I guess I'm saying, like, sometimes players give you a golden opportunity of, to insert something, or to move the plot a certain way, or to, play with some idea that you've been thinking about. And it may not take you directly the way that you had planned in terms of story, but do think about possibly following it, and seeing what happens. I understand not all GMs are really good on the improvisational stuff. My style is I play things really, really loose, and mostly because I have a good sense of when I can get away with something and when I can't. And when I can't get away with something, I usually give it the choice to the players so that they can decide. But yeah, so that's those sort of weird things, like I've got I take a monkey and I have two linking books and I smash the monkey in between the linking books so that the books hit at the same time. What happens? I mean, they're kind of goofy, yeah. But once again, don't, think about sometimes that you may want to run with it. Go with the weird idea. Anyways, Myst at the time was, one of the big things about Myst was that, the ending. It was sort of like, well, that ending, there's what choice are you going to make? And people are all very hush-hush about, don't tell anybody, And it's fun to kind of watch people who play on streams with this, because because it's, most people realize they shouldn't be trusting Aknar at all. I mean, it's sort of an obvious thing. A lot of people, get that sort of, dangerous, creepy vibe off of Cirrus. It's kind of interesting to see which people really get that vibe, and then we'll think, okay, well, Aknar may look crazy, but at least he's not that guy. But there are a good number of people who's like, I don't think I can trust anybody here. They're all sus. And then you give them this little choice here. It's like, oh, there's another book. But they both tell me I shouldn't touch it. Me being vaguely methodical, I was like, okay, I'm going to save, and then try one option, and try the next option, and see what, and try other options to see what happens. I got through a lot of adventure games by doing that. Save. Oh, well, that was stupid. I died. Okay. Boot the save back up. Let's do the other one. But let's talk to Atris.
Have you found the missing page? Come. Come on, then.
That seems to have skipped something in the story, but hey. I will go find the missing page. Yeah, there's a lot of games, especially the earlier ones, that show you no mercy for making the wrong choice. And so saving and trying, was absolutely required. I think some of it just has to come from the fact that a lot of things were written by programmers early on. And they had a definite sort of, well, if you fail, then it's your own fault sort of thing going. I mean, you'll still see situations sort of like that. There's a game called Detroit Become Human, a game I love, by the way. But there are a lot of choices that you get in it that are not clear what's going to happen. So, part of it is not so much you're making decisions that you are going to do certain things, but it's sort of, I think I'll choose A, or I'll choose door number 3, Monty, and is part of the fun is seeing what actually happens as opposed to getting to a particular place that you want to be. Once again, the sense of discovery. Come on. Here we go. Yeah, there's the arcade game maker game.
Found the missing page.
I have it right here.
Come.
Even though we skipped our whole intro, I trust you.
Come on then.
But yeah, there's the arcade game maker mentality of getting more quarters out of you, making you spend more time. Hey Triss. Hey Triss. Sometimes you need an inventory just so you can throw something at Triss to help pay attention. There we go.
You've done the right thing. I have a difficult choice to make.
Using the D&D version of magical cellophane tape to get that in there.
My sons have betrayed me. I know what I must do. I shall return shortly.
See, this is one of those places where it makes sense, that you have to wait, but it is sort of, just, it's sort of annoying. It's just like,
I have many questions for you, my friend, but my rating cannot wait. I fear that my long delay may have already had a catastrophic impact on the world in which my wife Catherine is being held hostage. Reward. I'm sorry, but all I have to offer you is the library on the island of Myst. The books that are contained there. Feel free to explore at your leisure. I hope your explorations are satisfying. You will no longer have my sons to deal with. Oh, and one more favor. I'm fighting a foe much greater than my sons could ever have imagined. At some point in the future, I may find it necessary to request your assistance. Until that point, you're free to enjoy the exploration from my library on Myst. And thank you again.
Thank you again. Go away. No, go explore Myst. Thank you. Go away.
Oh, the book. You can use the Myst linking book to return to Myst.
Oh, I think my thing may have... Oh, there we go. Yeah, it was glitching. I couldn't do much. And then, of course, go to Myst. So I'm going to wrap up because it's been about 3 hours. Been over 3 hours. Which means that we'll probably will not go to Rhyme. I mean, Rhyme is a cool age, and it kind of does, give some stuff in terms of, getting you, kind of ready for a little bit more information for Riven. Um, but I'm not sure it adds a lot here. Or that discussion of it would add all that much. Um, I do kind of want to talk about the ending here. Um, hey, Zork player. Unfortunately, we're going to be able to. Hey, Zork player. Unfortunately, we're getting close to wrapping up here soon, but I'm glad that you can make it by. Um, we're here. I'm going to be here most Tuesdays from 5:30 p.m. Um Pacific time till about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. Oh, I should note this. Next week there will be no Tuesday stream. I will be hopefully on vacation for a little bit. Um, so it will skip the stream next Tuesday, but it will be right back on the one after that. How do I know about Unwritten RPG, Zork player? I wrote it, so I'm pretty familiar with it. Um, I mean, are you familiar with Unwritten RPG? I mean, obviously, you might know some about it, but and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer. I apologize if I seem a little short. Um, been playing for a bit. Yeah. I Yes, I have been at the Mysterium Con. I've run a couple games at Mysterium. Um, the last couple, not last year, not this year, but the year before, and a couple ones before that. That was me. I ran those games. So hi, and your name seems kind of familiar. Uh, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, Junie. Let's say, not next week, but the week after that, we'll be hopping into Riven, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that. I did talk on Zork Player. I did talk on the. I did do the panel for Unwritten at Mysterium this year. Yes, that was me. I think we've talked before online before. I go by Vax Jedi when I'm not doing official stuff. So I think we've chatted on via Twitch before. Um, so, yeah, exactly. So nice to see you again. But yeah, everybody, thanks for coming. If you have any last questions, this is the time. If not, start thinking about start thinking about the possibilities that you might want to see, not just in terms of this stream, but the things that you want to do with Unwritten. You know, Thanks a lot, Rachel. Thanks for being here. What do I think of Doobs? Doobs is pretty awesome. I think Doobs is doing some great work in the Open Uru and the new ages and such. Um, Thanks, Junie. Thanks very much. Um, and I think at one point, when I get to the Uru section of things, I may go through Doob's ages and the other ages that are coming out of the Guild of Writers and do the same sort of commentary like I'm doing here, except it'll probably be a little more fresh in the sense that I've not spent a lot of time in those ages yet. Um, so yeah, and hopefully maybe someday we'll get some of the age creators onto the podcast when we get that back on track, where they can kind of talk about how they were designing their lore and such. But so yeah, next in 2 weeks' time we will talk about Riven. We'll play through it. But yeah, think about the sort of things that you want to do with Unwritten, the sort of things that you want to think about, how Riven might be adapted, and then bring those questions. You want to know why there is a hole in the rock that seems to be there for no reason. In Riven? I mean, there's a lot of rock in Riven. Is it around here somewhere? I don't know. But okay. Well, anyways, I need to run. My voice is getting a little rough. And I think I may actually go, like, eat dinner or something. Who knows? Thanks for being here. The new Agent Uru, I do not know. I have not seen them. I haven't really gone a huge amount into those new ages. So I would talk to Doobs or somebody. You all have a great night. Sharab Bashemti. Be safe. And I'll see you in 2 weeks.